What's up, guys? It's your boy MMA Striker back with another video today. And today I'm doing a updated version of my GOAT list, my top 10 greatest fighters of all time. And I did do a video about this about a few months back, but it did get deleted. And plus, my list has changed a lot since then. So my criteria is still the same: level of competition, title defenses, and win streak. And we're gonna start at number 10 and work our way up to number 1. So number 10, I have Khabib Nurmagomedov, the undisputed lightweight champion of the world, 28-0, two title defenses since being champion. And Khabib he didn't really start fighting like top lightweights till like he became a top contender. His best wins are against Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, Edson Barboza, and RDA. And he's pretty much been very dominant his whole career. It hasn't really been tested yet. So I think he's the greatest lightweight of all time. I know some people say BJ Penn, but BJ Penn did not fight good competition at all. The level of competition back then compared to now was much better now. But I have Khabib at number 10. I think if he fights GSP in the future and beats him, I'll have to put him top 3, top 2. But right now, he's number 10. Number 9, I have Triple C, Henry Cejudo, the former flyweight and bantamweight champion of the world. Henry Cejudo retired a few months ago, and skill-wise, he's one of the greatest fighters of all time, and he's beaten a great list of names. He's beaten Demetrius Johnson, TJ Dillashaw, Marlon Moraes, and Dominic Cruz. He defended both belts once each, and the one thing that kind of holds him back from being a top 5 of all time is he didn't have that many title defenses because his career was kind of short. He retired early, but that's the only thing I can hold him back for, is not that many title defenses. But other than that, he has the skills, he has the resume. Henry Cejudo is number 9 on my list. Number 8, I have Daniel Cormier, DC. Now, DC was 7 on my list, but now he is 8. And not because he lost Stipe again, but I had to put him 8 because I had to make a few switches. But he's number 8. DC, former heavyweight champion, former light heavyweight champion. Had 2 title defenses at light heavyweight, 1 at heavyweight. The one thing about DC's resume is he didn't fight a lot of great champions, like a lot of great fighters, but he fought a lot of he fought a lot of good fighters, a lot of fighters who were like top contenders, but he didn't really fight great champions. His best win by far is Stipe Miocic, the first fight. His top 3 wins are Stipe, Gustafsson, and Rumble 1. He has a lot of good wins against guys like Volkan Oezdemir, Derek Lewis, Josh Barnett, Bigfoot. Anderson Silva was a decent win, but Anderson Silva was on 2 days' notice, and Anderson was way past his prime, but it was a decent win. He did good in the fight. And yeah, I mean, DC's one of the greatest fighters of all time, but like I said, the one thing that kind of holds him back is his competition beating isn't really as strong as people in front of him. But DC is number 8 on my list. Number 7 is Fedor Emelianenko. Now, Fedor wasn't on my list last time, but he's on the list this time. Fedor, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, has second most title defenses in heavyweight history with 3, and had a long 10-year win streak. And a lot of people say, for some reason, they say his competition wasn't that good. I kind of disagree. In his time, he beat 7 UFC champions. He beat Nogueira twice. He beat Kevin Randleman. He beat Mirko Cro Cop. He beat Arlovsky. He beat Simi Schilt, who was a great kickboxer. Beat Mark Coleman twice. Mark Hunt, Frank Mir, Tim Sylvia. He's beaten a lot of good fighters, a lot of great fighters. So Fedor, in my opinion, is number 7 greatest fighter of all time. And number 6, I have Stipe Miocic, the greatest heavyweight of all time. Has in total 4 title defenses, which is the most of all time. Has a great resume, and he's beaten great guys. His best wins are against Ngannou, Verdum, and Overeem. He also has a lot of good wins against guys like JDS, which JDS was past his prime when they fought, but still a good win. He knocked him out in the first round. Mark Hunt, Andrei Arlovsky, Roy Nelson. He has a lot of good wins. Also, DC twice. Can't forget about that one. Those are his great wins. And skill-wise, Stipe is one of the most well-rounded fighters in the UFC. Has probably the best pivot right cross in the UFC. So Stipe is number 6 on my list. And number 5, this may be shocking to some people, but number 5, I have Anderson the Spider Silva. Now, Anderson Silva is one of the greatest fighters of all time, obviously. One of the best, if not the best, striker in history when he was in his prime. And has the second most title defenses in UFC history with 10. But the one thing that holds Anderson Silva back, in my opinion, and the reason why I can't put him in the top 5 or top 3 or even GOAT is his level of competition is not that strong. A lot of people like to put him like top 3, but I just can't because his competition wasn't that strong if you really look at it. His best wins were against Vitor Belfort, Dan Henderson, Rich Franklin, and Forrest Griffin. But other than that, I mean, do you give him wins like Stephen Bonner, Patrick Cote, Tyler Slateys, like Chael Sonnen, it's a borderline great win. It's like, I don't know, you could put it in his own category. Chael Sonnen, skill-wise, he wasn't that skilled, but I mean, I guess it was a great win. You could put it in that category, but I don't know. But other than like the 4 names I named, Franklin, Henderson, Forrest, and Vitor, other than that, his competition wasn't that strong. But it wasn't his fault because the era he was in, just the era of middleweight wasn't that strong as it is now. So he just fought whoever they put in front of him, and he destroyed them. But his competition and plus his losses, and I know a lot of people don't like to count losses. The excuse they use is he wasn't in his prime, but if you're talking about all time, you have to count their whole career, not just a portion or an era of their career. So those are the 2 things that hurt Anderson Silva from being like top 3 in my opinion. But moving on to number 4. Number 4, I have Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo, in my opinion, the greatest featherweight of all time. Former WEC champion and UFC champion. Has 9 title defenses, which is tied with GSP. And he's beaten some great names. He's beaten guys like Frankie Edgar twice, Chad Mendez twice, Ricardo Lamas, Korean Zombie, Mark Hominick, Kenny Florian. He's beaten a lot of great fighters. Renato Moicano, Jeremy Stevens. He has beaten a lot of great fighters in his time. Also, for Uriah Faber in the WEC, back when Uriah was in his prime, Mike Brown. So I mean, Jose Aldo has one of the best resumes in all of MMA, and a lot of people let the Conor McGregor laws. I can't talk today. The Conor McGregor laws overshadow his career, but you really can't do that. It's really not fair to the fighter. It's not fair to his overall body of work in his career. You can't let one loss define his whole career. And I know he has lost a lot recently, which one of the reasons why I can't put him top 3 or top 2. But overall, he never tested positive for steroids or anything. He never had any shade or scandals attached to his name. He was a dominant champion, one of the most dominant champions of all time, one of the greatest strikers of all time. Has the best takedown defense of all time. He stuffed takedowns from prime Mendez and prime Edgar, which is something, which is very impressive. So, in my opinion, Jose Aldo's number 4 greatest fighter of all time. And number 3 is Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, DJ, former flyweight champion. His current 1 champion in both divisions, flyweight and bantamweight. He has the most title defenses in UFC history with 11. One of the most, if not the most skillful MMA fighter of all time. And I know a lot of people say his competition is trash, but I disagree heavily about that because people look at his resume and they say, oh, he doesn't have that many big names on his resume. Well, names doesn't really equal skill, so that's why I disagree. They look at the names and say he hasn't fought that many names. Yeah, his resume doesn't have much name value, but his resume has a lot of skillful fighters beaten. His best wins are against Benavidez twice, Dotson, Cejudo, and Kyoji Horiguchi. And he has a lot of other good wins against Miguel Torres at 135, Ian McCall, Ali Bakhnotinov, who was on EPO when they fought, and he still dominated him. Wilson Hayes, Ray Borg. So he's beaten a lot of good, skillful fighters. He's one of the most skilled fighters of all time, and he went over to a different organization and won 2 belts there. So DJ, accomplishment-wise, is stacked. Skill-wise, one of the most skilled fighters, and he's number 3 all time on my list. Number 2, I have John Bones Jones. John Jones, the greatest light heavyweight fighter of all time, one of the most skilled fighters of all time. He's the best at using his reach. He has the longest reach in UFC history, but he knows how to use it very well. And I had John Jones 1 on my list, but I moved him down to 2. And his competition-wise, John Jones has beaten great competition. It's not the early part of his championship reign that is that's good, like the Shoguns and the Quentin Jacksons and the Lyoto Machida. His best wins, in my opinion, is Alexander Gustafsson, DC, Dominic Reyes, Santos. Gustafsson in both fights, I'll give it to you. Rampage was a great win. Rashad Evans, Lyoto Machida was a great win. So John Jones has a great resume. And yeah, the steroids and not the steroids, but the PEDs, all that shade. Now, I don't really, people who tested positive, I don't remove them from the list. Simply because pre-USADA, we don't know who was doing what. Guys like Aldo could have been on something. Anderson probably on something maybe. We don't know who was on what pre-USADA, so I don't really remove people who got caught during USADA from the list. But a lot of people do, and I don't blame them for that. But John Jones has, his first reign had 8 title defenses, and his second reign has 3 right now. So in total, he has 11 title defenses. And what else can I say about the man? He's one of the greatest fighters of all time. He also beat 3 generations of light heavyweights, which is very hard to do. Not many people are able to beat 3 generations of fighters. He beat the generation before him, which is Shogun, Rampage, Lyoto. Beat the people in the same generation as him, Gustafsson, DC, Glover, Anthony Smith, and he beat the generation after him, which is Dominic Reyes. So he is one of the greatest of all time. I have him number 2 on my list. And moving on to the greatest fighter of all time, and that is George Rush St. Pierre, GSP, the greatest welterweight of all time. In my opinion, the greatest champion and greatest fighter of all time. I believe he has the best resume. He's beaten guys like BJ Penn twice, Matt Hughes twice, John Fitch, Josh Koscheck, Jake Shields in his prime, which he was the second best welterweight at that time. Carlos Condit, Nick Diaz, Johnny Hendricks, Bisping. He beat Carl Parisian early on in his career, which was a great win. Beat Sean Shirk, Matt Serra, avenged that loss. Dominated him, beat Thiago Alves, Dan Hardy. He's beaten a lot of great names. He also beat 3 generations of welterweights, which is, again, one of the hardest thing to do. The newer generation always has proven to either beat the dominant champions or give them their hardest fight. GSP once again beat the 3 generations, beat the generation before him, BJ Penn, Matt Hughes. Well, BJ Penn was kind of in the same generation. Matt Hughes was a generation before him. He beat guys in the same generation like Jake Shields, Dan Hardy, Thiago Alves, Serra, John Fitch, Nick Diaz. And then he beat Michael Bisping in the same generation. And then he beat the generation after him, which was Johnny Hendricks and Carlos Condit. GSP, one of the most skilled fighters, if not the most skilled fighter of all time. And he didn't really have that many close fights in his career, other than his losses, of course. His only close fight as champion was Johnny Hendricks. But other than that, he pretty much dominated everybody else. He didn't really have much close fights, opposed to like guys like Jones has had a few close fights. Aldo has had a few close fights as champion. DJ had a close fight, multiple close fights as champion. GSP he only had 1 close fight as champion in his second reign, the 2006 to 2013 reign. Had one of the longest win streaks as champion. And in my opinion, GSP is the greatest fighter of all time. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Make sure to comment down below your list, and if you disagree or agree with my list. And make sure to comment down below. I already said that. What am I? I cannot talk today. Make sure to subscribe and like this video if you want to see more videos like this. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Hope you guys have a great day.